I want to thank everyone for coming to our Cafe Pan Dulce, hosted by Representative Ed Thompson. And thank you everyone for coming. These are the networking events that the Brazoria County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce holds every month, once a month. I'm Gina Geary Adams. I'm the President CEO of the Brazoria County Hispanic Chamber. And I wanted to thank you so much for hosting this. I think this is a good opportunity to be able to, talk a little bit about what you're doing and give some updates. So the chamber really, we're really excited about our partnership. You do a lot of with us, and as far as supporting a lot of what we do, and I really thank you for that.
Thank you.
So if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate everybody coming out to this morning. First of all, I want to thank the Pearland Alliance for Arts for the facility here. This is open. Heidi, I don't know if she's here or she left, or she'll be back. Okay, good. Well, you're welcome to come in anytime and see the displays. They do a really great job. Before we start this morning, I think that it's sort of apropos that on today is 9/11. 18 years ago today, I think everyone probably in this room remembers where they were when we heard the news of the planes going into the One World Trade Center, and I think it really changed America. The first time that we had been attacked on our soil, and it made a lot of difference in a lot of lives. And I know there's still people that lost loved ones in that still miss them, and it was a tremendous tragedy, horrific tragedy, something that I think this country will always remember, and I hope we do always remember the folks that lost their lives in this. So if we could, let's take a moment to remember them. Thank you. Okay, I wanted to do some introductions, if that's okay. I'd like very much to introduce.
It's your show, so
okay. Okay. Well, first of all, Gina, thank you for allowing us to do this. I think it's very, very important that elected officials. One of the things that I think is so important is that we have the opportunity to be involved in organizations, to be engaged with organizations, to be able to talk about issues that are concerning to everyone, and that's what we fortunately, as a state representative, I have the opportunity to engage in a way that many times we can make a difference in legislation and at the state level. And so it's very important that we have these opportunities together, not only to discuss that, but also just to form those relationships to where people know who they can talk to, who are the folks that possibly can get things done. So I hope that we'll continue to do that. I hope we're going to continue to engage. We're looking forward to this weekend. Y'all have a Latin festival out at the town center. Very excited about that. Gina was telling me that they have over 50 booths already spoken for, and it is. They call it the day at Alvin ISD. A lot of the kids are volunteering, so a lot of the Alvin ISD students will be there. Pearland ISD students will be there. So please come out. It's from 10 to
3.
10 to 3 on Saturday at Town Center. There's where the large pavilion is there at Town Center is where it'll be. So be sure and come out. I think you'd really enjoy the opportunity to see a lot of our culture that is a very important part of not only House District 29, but the entire state of Texas.
Definitely.
So thank you for doing that.
Yes.
We're looking forward to
that.
that.
We'll have a lot of entertainment. We're going to have ballet folklorico dancers and some Brazilian dancers. So there's just going to be a lot of different types of entertainment, and a lot of the students from the Alvin ISD and Pearland ISD that might be performing as well. So
thank you. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, and a lot of us will learn a lot out there, that's for sure.
Definitely.
That's great. So I want to introduce some folks. First of all, some folks that are in my office that are, certainly very, very important to me, but also very important to you because, trust me, You know, I could not do this without them. You know, they are the ones that, you know, they're the wheels behind all this, and they get a lot of things done for me. I'm very blessed to have some wonderful people, you know, on my staff that really do go above and beyond and work very, very hard to take care of the constituents of our district and listen to, put up with me. My, you know, 8 o'clock at night emails and text messages and everything else that goes on. So I really appreciate them, and I want to introduce them. Most of you certainly know Liz Sitta, who is our legislative director here in the district. She is the contact for us here, and one that is very, very important to us. She does a lot of work out in the community and in the district, and that's so important for us to be able to have that when I can't be there, when I many times, you know, we have multiple events, or we have days when I might be out of pocket. She will attend for me, but also she kind of keeps me between the lanes, in the lane there, to be sure that we get things done. So I really appreciate Liz and the hard work that she does. Emily, Emily, there you go. She is our legislative director in Austin. Emily was with us during the last legislative session. Did a wonderful job. Did a great job. She was really our sort of my go-to person for transportation legislation. I was on the transportation committee, and so we had a lot of not only our own legislation but also other pieces of legislation that she worked on and helped me with, and she does a wonderful job. She does a great job of corresponding with our constituents, and also trying to make sure that we doing what we need to do in regards to that legislation. So thank you, Emily. And then Molly Wilson is, there she is over there. Molly is our new chief of staff. Molly has worked in the Capitol in a number of different offices. She is a graduate of Baylor Law, and so she brings a skill set that we really, really need. You know, I always say, you know, you don't like lawyers till you need one. So, but Molly has really got a lot of perspective in regards to legislation, and it's very important, you know, from a standpoint of being able to dissect and to go through a lot of that legislation that's so very, very important. And many times there are parts of that honestly are very difficult to piece together. So she's going to help us work through that, and also to manage our office. It's one that it's amazing the amount of time and effort that it takes, you know, in a legislative office. We have a lot of opportunities to help people, but there's also a lot of challenges with those opportunities, because we're working in many cases with state agencies that they're not on quite the same timeline that we're on. So a lot of times we're harassing people daily. So, but that's what we're there for. We want to try and help our constituents in any way we can. I think it's very important that we do that. I also wanted to introduce some of the elected officials that are here with us today. Roy Castillo, who is the JP here in precinct 3, place 2. Place 2. Okay. I always get those. Anyway, he's a JP. So you go. I don't know whether you want to go. I don't know whether you want to go see Roy or not. 3-1. Oh, you're 3-1. Okay. All right. 3-1. All right. Okay. All right. Great. Well, Roy, thank you for being here. Buck Stevens, constable. He's in the back there. Buck, thank you for coming. And then I also want to introduce, and I don't know how many of you know, Shane Green, who is the head of the Republican Party here in Brazoria County. Shane's relatively new to the job, and so he took over that and is doing a wonderful job. Very excited about the opportunities that we're going to have there, and the hard work that both him and his wife Becky are doing. It's kind of like one of those, it's like, I used to tell people when I officiated football, it's kind of one of those jobs that no one appreciated, but when you're not there, the game doesn't get played. So it's very important, and appreciate y'all making the drive up this morning. They drove up from Lake Jackson. I think what we were going to try and do is was talk a little bit about some of the constitutional amendments that are coming up in the November election. I wanted to kind of go over those real quickly with y'all. I think it's important that first of all, November is kind of what everyone would call an off-year election, but these constitutional amendments are very important, and ones that I think that we all need to be sure that we know about and know that we're voting on them for a reason, and I think that's what's very important that you take that information. But I'm going to run through them real quickly. Yeah, also on the table up here, there are a couple of things. There is a sheet with these constitutional amendments on it, so you can take that and go through it. I think there's also a link on our with our capital review. If you're not getting our capital review, if you see Liz, if you want to get it, it's electronic. It's sent out once a month, and it's got a lot of good information. But there's a link on there that actually you can go and click on it, and it takes you into a little more in depth into these constitutional amendments. But they are here on the table, and then also there's some red folders up there, which what that does is it sort of gives you a breakdown of everything that, I don't say everything, but a lot of the major legislation that we passed and the impact that it made in different areas in that red folder. So there's about 4 sheets in there. It talks a lot about the budget, some things that gets kind of deep in weeds that would be something we wouldn't have time to do today, but you can go through that. If you've got any questions about that, certainly reach out to our office, and we'd be glad to cover those with you in depth. We're also this evening at 6 o'clock. If you would like, you can come to our town hall meeting, which will be at the West Side Library over near HEB on the off of Business Center Drive. There at Broadway and Business Center. If you'll be there at 6 o'clock, we're gonna spend about an hour and a half going through a lot of the legislation that we passed. Not only some of the major legislation, but also some of the legislation that my office had too, which I don't consider to be major, but very important to House District 29 and also to our area. So the constitutional amendments that we'll have, there are 10 of them. The first one, it has to do with municipal judges, the ability for a municipal judge to serve in multiple jurisdictions. Sometimes some of the smaller jurisdictions don't have the opportunity to hire a municipal judge, but there's just not enough of them. So this will allow for them to be able to have multiple jobs, I guess, if you will, so they could do that. The Proposition 2 has to do with additional bonds that would be available through the Texas Water Development Board. And this has to do especially in economically distressed areas where they don't have the ability to maybe bond for some of their the water and sewer needs that they have. A lot of the areas where we have colonias on the border and that sort of thing, they don't have the ability to be able to bond. So this would give them the ability through the water board to be able to do that. And I think it's very important that things that we take for granted many times, water, sewer, things like that, some areas of our state still are woefully behind in those areas. So I think this would give them an opportunity to be able to get those bonds at a reduced cost, but they still would be obligated to pay those bonds back. Prop 3 has to do with the temporary exemption of ad valorem tax when there's damage, like a disaster. So many of us, faced during Hurricane Harvey, properties were damaged in a way that, the value of those properties were not what they were after Harvey hit them. So this would actually give the legislature the opportunity to be able to take care of that during a period of time when we are in a disaster. And I think it's important that people, certainly when you're hit with a disaster like that, you're concern is for that, the money that you have, and that is a very important part to allow them to get back on their feet. Proposition 4 is probably the one that will be the most talked about, and that's a proposition that prohibits a state income tax. Now, let me tell you a little bit of again, going back to the lawyer thing, the way this was written, it was written that it says to prohibit the imposition of an individual income tax. So you would vote yes to say no to a state income tax. So just FYI, a lot of people would read state income or individual income tax and say, well, I don't want that, so I'm voting no. Well, if you vote no, you're actually saying, yes, I do want it, because this has the word prohibit in it. So be sure that you know that, and also that you inform other people that might, friends and family that might not pay as close attention to something like that, because that's one of the things I think is going to be a big concern, is that people don't read those propositions, and that would be sometimes, that could be confusing if they don't read it all the way through.
Did the author of that particular one want to trip people up?
I don't think that was the intention at all. I think once the lawyers kind of got a hold of it and started reading the legislation, that's the way they interpreted it to be done, was that it was the way the bill was written, was that it was to prohibit, so that's why they put that language in there. So it wasn't at all to trip anybody up. It was just, I think, the way that it got written. So number 5 is what this does is this, right now when we have sales tax on sporting goods and things like that, that money is appropriated and designated to go to Texas Parks and Wildlife and the historical ventures here in Texas. So but that's left up to the appropriators to do at the time of appropriation. What this constitutional amendment would do is that it would say, going forward, it would always be that way. So no future legislature could actually go in and change that and use those sales tax for other purposes. So it is what those revenues are dedicated for, and it's something that as a legislature, we've been working on, is trying our best to make sure that money we tell people that is dedicated to something, that money goes for that and is not diverted into other areas. So we've been chipping away at that through numerous legislative sessions now. But this would, by putting in the Constitution, then no future legislature could change that. So that's why this is also in there. Number 6 is one that has to do with CPRIT, which is the Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas, which is very important here in our area because of MD Anderson. They're a big benefactor of this, and many of you probably know about Jim Arnold, who was a Nobel Prize winner because of his discovery about some immunotherapy drugs that he came up with that have revolutionized a lot of cancer treatment. Well, the reason he is here, the reason he came to MD Anderson, is because of this CPRIT. It brought him to our area, and so this actually authorized us as a legislature to increase the maximum bonding amount by $3 billion. It doesn't mean that that's what we will do, but it puts a ceiling on that amount that can be done, and one that I believe is so very important. I think we're making some tremendous strides, and most of us and a lot of us in this room have had loved ones that have gone through cancer treatments, and such an important research that's taking place, and so many great things are being done there. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the next one here. Number 7 is this would actually place a constitutional amendment to allow increased distributions of the available school fund. We have a permanent school fund, and that would allow us to be able to appropriate money there from that. That right now is one that has been sort of spread around to a couple of different agencies, and it's trying to bring it back to where we as a legislature could do a little bit more with those funds. and I think very important to our public education system. Prop 8 is this is one that came out of Hurricane Harvey. It provides for the creation of a flood infrastructure fund to assist in financing drainage, flood mitigation, and flood control projects. One that certainly has had a lot of impact on our area. We're starting to work on a state flood plan, if you will, and I think that's very important. I've said, all along, we as different entities that are working on these flood projects many times don't communicate with one another quite like they should, and sometimes things get done and then they're working against each other to some extent. So we don't want that to continue, so we're going to continue to work on that. Prop 9 would actually authorize us to exempt, the legislature, to exempt from ad valorem tax precious metals. Those are now already exempted, but there are some entities that want to try and place an ad valorem tax on them, some of the cities and counties, and so this would actually exempt those precious metals going forward. And number 10 is a constitutional amendment that would allow the transfer of law enforcement animals to a qualified caretaker in certain circumstances. What this does in a lot of cases, you'll see on TV maybe someone who's had a service, a dog, like a police department that has a dog, and the trainer or the handler of that dog, when they retire the dog, wants to keep it. Well, a city or they're prohibited from giving anything of value to anyone. So they consider the dog an asset, if you will, of the city or the county or whoever the department is. So this would allow them to be able to do that under the law. So one that, I think is very important, that many times these handlers have raised these animals from the time they were small and puppies, and they become attached to them, and the families become attached to them, and certainly it's important that those animals be retired in a way that is respectful of their service to us. So that's what Proposition 10 would do. So I went through those fairly quickly, and there's more behind the scenes, I guess, if you will, if you want to go and look at some of the pros and cons of those cons are available out there, and we can make that link available to you. If you reach out to Liz, she can do that for sure. So anyway, I think that kind of covers that, and I would first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's very important to us that we have an opportunity to communicate, and I'm very appreciative of y'all giving us this opportunity to speak before the Hispanic Chamber. It's very important that we have that opportunity to engage, and that's really so. I'm going to do my best here to. Liz has helped me with this, and I hope I don't mess it up too bad. But estoy aquí para servir y servir y ayudar. Gracias.
I want to thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
all you do for
Thank you.
our area, and keep working hard.
Thank you.
You're always there for us. So just thank you for everything.
Thank you. I appreciate